Salut coders, this is Pisky here. Welcome back to another tutorial. Home greetings to those who are joining us for the first time. In this tutorial, I want to show you how we can integrate to Postgres database, and the database will be running on Docker, and we are going to use the Postgres version 13. If you were watching our previous tutorials of microservices, building microservices architecture with Quarkus, we are going to use the same image that we were using for Postgres, and we are going to store a user in the table called users, and I will show you how we can achieve this in Quarkus. We are going to use a Spring JPA extension. So if you are familiar with the Spring, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how we can use Spring JPA the same way you do on Spring Framework. And I prefer this because I'm used to Spring Framework, and I would show you how easy to achieve this in Quarkus. So this is going to be our Postgres admin. If you don't have Postgres admin installed, you can go to Google and you can install the Postgres admin. And for the extension, we are going to use this extension. If you go to Quarkus Guide Spring Data JPA, we are going to install this extension on the project that we are currently working on. On the previous tutorials, which I showed you how to do dependency injection, how to create services, and also controllers. So this video, you are focusing on the data layer. So in this, we need to add this extension, Maven add extension, this Spring Data JPA, and it will be added into our POM file. So let's open our project, and we can open our terminal, and we can run this command. So if you go to our POM XML, that extension has been added. Quarkus Spring Data JPA. So let's continue with these configurations. So what you want to do here, we can continue. So this is the example of when you want to save a fruit. So you want to save a user. So let's add this annotation to our user model that you already have. So if you go to if you go to our model user, and we can add this annotation, and we can import it. It requires an annotation code at ID from Jakarta. So let's add this annotation. Then the next thing is to add a generated value. So here we choose if you put a long here, it will be auto generated ID, but for me I prefer to use a string. I prefer a string like a UUID. So here I can say there are two ways here. We have the strategy. The default is auto. So the strategy that I want to use is this one called UUID. So it will create a 36 UUID number and characters. So this is the one that I prefer. Then the next thing is let's create a repository. Package here, repository. So this is the one that we are going to use to manage to save this user, to get this user to write custom SQL queries. So we need to create an interface called user repository. User repository. So we need to extend JPA. We have CRUD, we have JPA. So for me, I prefer JPA because it has many things like paginations, and also it's better than CRUD sorting. So I prefer this one. And if you see this JPA, it requires two things: the model, which is an entity, and the ID class. So our model here, it's going to be a user, and our ID is a string. So how do I know this is a string? It's because in my model, this one, which is an entity, it has a ID of type string. So here we need to add a table, because this user is a unique constraint in the data when you write, when it's trying to execute. So it's a keyword, a user. So here we need to change this one, and we need to change the name of our table, and we can call it users. So our table is going to be users. So we are okay with this. So we need, in our service, we just copy this user API repository, and we can do dependency injection. So here we just say private final user repository. So I want to clean up the old code. Previously we were storing this in a list, but now we are now integrating with the database. So this thing is no longer necessary. So let me clean up all this code. We no longer need this. And here I can remove this. I can remove this also. Let's delete everything. Here just say return now for the update. Return now also. Then let's create a constructor, because I make it final, so we have to make a constructor dependency injection. So we can say generate constructor with this. So for if you want to save now, we already mapped our user from this, if you watched our previous tutorial. So what we can do here, we just say user repository dot save, because we are now using this user repository, and it allows this type of user. So what we can do, I can do this, it's easy, this one, I can just do this. And we can save this here. I just want to show you the ID which is being saved here. And I can say system.out.println. Again, I can say ID is equals to this one, save.id. So it's going to be the ID that this ID, it's going to be the ID of UUID auto-generated. So the next thing in our tutorial, let's proceed, because we haven't configured the database. So here is the database, it's Quarkus tests, and whenever we start the, so let me copy and I'll explain you more. So here with this configuration, we are going to use Postgres. You can use MySQL, and for the username here I'll just say Kong, because it's the one that I'm going to use from Kong Pass. So I have this query. If you go to the initial routes, you can see you can run this command, which is docker Kong database, and you can run this. It's in Kong network. The username is Kong and the password is Kong Pass. This is the Postgres version that I am running, Postgres 13. So the password is Kong Pass. So let me go back here. So username is Kong, here it's Kong Pass, and it is going to be running on localhost. And I just say localhost, and we create a database, and I can call it learning. This is going to be our database. So whenever we create we run this application, it will delete all tables and create new ones. So this is the auto generation. So if you are on production, you are not supposed to do this. You are supposed to put none. But just for testing purpose, we want to delete everything and create new record each time we run the application. So this is it. And let's see, I'm seeing an error here. It's because it's supposed to return something. And here I just say now. So this endpoint of creating will be able to create a record. So what we can do now is we have this database that we created, this one, which is called learning. Let's create it in our Postgres. So in our Postgres, if you don't know how to connect, you can create a server. So your server will be your local host and default port and the username and password of when running the application. So in one of these, I can just say, I can open my database here and I can say new database, and the name of the database is going to be learning, and I'll click save. So currently we don't have, in our schema, we don't have any tables. So when we run our application, we are expecting to see a new table here. So let's test our application. Yeah, it will fail because we do not add a Postgres dependence. It will fail because we do not have a data source like the JDBC. So we need to add this one. So if you go here, let's scroll up a bit. We can go to this directory and see the dependence that you are supposed to add. I prefer to go to the POM file so that we don't miss anything. We have added this JPA, but we are integrating with Postgres. So we need to add the Postgres dependency. So this is the dependence that you are supposed to add. For MySQL, you have to add MySQL here. So after doing this, I have to come back to our project. Go back to our POM file, just below here. I will sync the dependencies. So after syncing the dependencies, I will run the application again. Let's see. As you can see, our application is running. We don't have any issue now. It's running fine. So let's see in our database if we have the new table called users. So in our database, we can refresh this database. You can see we have a new table called users. So what you can do, I can view the data here and it is empty. You can see the primary key is 256. So far, this one is empty. So we need to use Postman to save the data. We already have this Postman. I have Postman installed. If you were watching my previous tutorial, I was showing you how to test all these endpoints with Postman. So this is the endpoint and this is the body that you are sending, and the email and the username, I can call it BISC here, and the password is 1234, and I will click send. You can see a 201 has been, it means a record has been created. So if you go to here, you can see our ID, our UUID. This is the command that this is the output that I showed you here when creating a new record. So if you go to our database, let's refresh here. You can see this is the record, and the username, which is BISC. So this is how you can save data into your database. So there are many things that you can do here. So in this tutorial, I just showed you the setup of integrating with the database Postgres. And to run this database, I showed you the script that you are supposed to use, which is this one. You can run this script to start your database. And after starting your database, we need to add these configurations. Only this configuration will make everything working, and we need to add these two dependencies, which is Quarkus Spring Data JPA and Quarkus JDBC Postgres. So if you are new to this channel, may you kindly subscribe, click the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever we upload new video. Let's meet on another video where we are going to do the updating of data, deletion, etc. Salut coders.